Pleased to be joined with K-Anthony. You are a artist that we hear all the time on CHVN, and you have a new song coming out on Friday. You're a Canadian artist. You have a song called Falling coming out August 15th. And when you hear this song, or when you get to chat with other people after they hear this song, what's something that you hope that they take away as kind of like a main message, main theme of that song?
Spite of see, this song came from the idea of Peter, why while he saw Jesus walking on the water, and sometimes we have great hopes and expectation for what God has created us to do, but in the midst of it, situation happens and things come at you, and you might slip, you might fall. But the idea is don't stay falling, but get back up.
And where do you find your main inspiration for your song? Because it must take a lot to kind of take thoughts and what you're going through, what you're maybe reading in the Bible of, and kind of translate that to be able to communicate that through music.
Well, interestingly, when I wrote "Falling," I was going through anxiety and depression. There were some issues in my family life that was bearing heavily on me, and I realized that I felt weighed down. I felt the pressures, and I needed to be picked up. And interestingly, when I was working with Derek, who is a producer, who is in Nashville, we were just talking about what am I going through at this point in time. And I told him the story and all that was happening, and we just went directly into just started writing, and this came out a beautiful expression, full of emotion. Uh, my story, somewhat, but is a story that everyone can. Uh, there's a common experience for everyone in the song, so I hope they can see that and allow God to lift them up from wherever they are and to continue walking them along this journey of faith.
And I'd love to kind of dive into it a little bit more. You say your story. So like how does your maybe life experience growing up, finding Jesus, whatever kind of part it was, like how does that kind of play into maybe not just this song, but your music, your ministry as a whole?
My upbringing have a lot to do with what I do. I was raised in a Christian home. I was raised in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I started singing from early. I started singing when I was 12 years old, and I say this often in interviews that my encounter with God came from a disobedient act. I wasn't supposed to go to the beach. I ended up following some friends and almost drowned. And in the while it was happening, the only thing I could remember is what the pastor said previously, the Sabbath, which if you're ever in trouble, call on God. And everything was happening so fast. And so I said, God, save me. And if you do, I'll give you my heart. And out of the blue, a former a classmate of mine at the time just came running and shouting that I shouldn't give up. He's coming to save me. I had already gone under the water multiple times, getting very tired, and my tummy was filled with water. And so I was about to give up. So I think it was really God speaking to him to tell him to remind me that, hey, you have asked me for your help, and here is the help that I'm going to give you. And he saved me. But I never forgot that it was God whom I prayed to, and it was He who used that person to save me. And so traversing life, I didn't commit immediately, but not long after, I realized that I made a promise and I need to keep the promise, and my relationship with God got stronger. And I got baptized when I was in eighth grade. And so it has been, you see, what many persons don't tell you that the Christian walk is the best walk, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be a smooth road. It's a very narrow road and it comes with hurdles. And sometimes you think you're prepared to go over the hurdle and you fail. But failure can propel you into mastering that weakness or mastering that thing that keeps you down. And so I've never given up because I've realized that Jesus has never given up on me. And so I want people to understand that. I know you're probably struggling with drug, you're probably struggling with anxiety and depression, probably struggling with pornography, you're probably struggling with various things, because everyone doesn't face the same challenges because we don't come from the same background and we don't have the same culture, home culture I'm talking about, or church culture, or culture within the community or within the country. And so that sometimes can bear on you as an individual. And as you get to know Christ, you see how far you are from him, and that's fine. But you allow him to bring you closer to where he wants you to be. Always be open, knowing that if he hasn't given up on you, don't need to stay falling. He wants to lift you up.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, it's like you got to kind of see how God works just like that, right? And it's just like,
Yeah.
obviously, I'm sure you probably would have preferred not having to kind of go through that situation, but obviously that's what it took. And now it's
Yes.
like that's like kind of what ignited your love for Jesus. And now you're getting to encourage
Yes.
so many people through your music. And so, yeah, maybe through your songs, through your music ministry, have you been able to like hear from listeners and just like how words that you have written down on paper, words that you have sung, how that's been able to encourage them in their faith?
Yes. Quite often people would contact me and say, hey, this specific song spoke to me because of what was happening. I just had an
Mhm.
encounter with a gentleman who's an actor. I won't call his name. If he's listening, he'll know himself. He's an actor in Canada. And he said, the song Miracle that you sang is is the song that is helping me at this point in time. And so when life sometimes gets hard for me as a artist, it brings great joy and great fill me with emotions to know that something that God has laid on my heart is impacting someone, not to give up and to know that there is always a miracle around the corner for them. And the fact that they're breathing, the fact that they're alive is a miracle. So that message this week was a powerful one for me.
Mm. Thank you. Yeah, for sharing that. And yeah, so your song Falling comes out Friday, August 15th. I'm sure you're going to get a ton of
Yes.
messages, I'm sure, of encouragement of just how it's been able to, yeah, play a role in people's faith. And yeah, maybe as a songwriter, as a singer, is there any word of encouragement that you want people to just kind of hold on to from that song?
The song and overall, from the text that I hold dear is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct your path. Your current life situation might seem dark, seem dim, no light at the end of the tunnel, but you can trust God that he's always faithful. If you place yourself into his care, he will guide you and he will see you live out the purpose that he has created you for. So trust God.
All right. Okay, Anthony, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me and join me and share about your music and this song. We're excited to hear it and hear how God's going to use this song and your future songs.
And I want to thank you so much for having me.